Euh, Bonjour Charles, tu m'entends?
Oui, c'est bon.
Ok.
Bonjour, madame.
Oui, bonjour, bonjour. L'interprétation, c'est bon, tout est bon, Charles?
C'est bon, vous pouvez commencer, tout est OK.
Ok, attends. Est-ce que Bakary est connecté?
Merci de commencer.
Ok, d'accord. Bonjour à tous. D'abord, pour les francophones et anglophones, les participants du cours, donc bienvenue à ce masterclass webinaire avec ONU Femmes. Donc, en bas de votre écran, vous avez l'icône interprétation. Donc, vous cliquez là-bas et vous choisissez la langue de votre choix. Voilà. Donc, on va démarrer la session par des mots de bienvenue de Bakary, qui est le chef de la division euh, formation et recherche de l'IDEP. Donc, après, il y a aussi qui va représenter la directrice qui n'a pas pu se libérer. Donc, à préciser ça. Donc, après, sur le programme, on a Madame Mireille Kamitatou, Deputy Regional Director de ONU Femmes, de UN Women, donc qui va faire aussi ses mots de bienvenue. Après, il y a un petit sondage qui sera lancé, donc pour 5 minutes. Donc, après, va suivre les présentations. Voilà. Donc, je pense que Bakary, tu peux démarrer. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Zainabou. Donc, je voulais dire ces mots au nom de la directrice de l'IDEP, Karima Bounemra Ben Sultan, la directrice de l'IDEP, et dire que l'IDEP est très heureux de co-organiser cette masterclass sur la protection sociale et l'économie des soins avec l'ONU Femmes. La politique sociale est une des 6 orientations stratégiques de l'IDEP, une des orientations dans lesquelles nous allons nous engager pour la période 2025-2029, durant les 5 prochaines années. Comme vous le savez, la démographie constitue l'un des enjeux essentiels qui façonnent le développement du continent. Nous sommes un peu plus de 1,3 milliard d'Africains maintenant et cette population est projetée à presque en 2050 à 2,5 milliards. Et les défis que nous avons non seulement les défis de transformation économique, mais nous avons surtout les défis de transformation démographique, notamment, vous savez que presque la moitié de la population vit en dessous du seuil de pauvreté, et ce qui est un défi majeur. Et nous savons également qu'en Afrique, nous avons énormément de jeunes et également, et donc la question d'emploi qui se trouve par rapport à ces jeunes. Donc, vous voyez bien que donc, la question de la protection sociale et l'économie de savoir est donc un élément important. IDEP s'est engagé à équiper les décideurs politiques, les praticiens et les autres acteurs clés avec des connaissances et des outils nécessaires pour développer et mettre en œuvre des politiques sociales efficaces, durables et surtout sensibles aux gens. Ce masterclass que vous avez reçu fait partie et à la suite de la formation que nous avons organisée sur la protection sociale et l'économie des soins. Nous avons eu plus de 4000 apprenants à cette formation de l'IDEP et nous pensons que ce séminaire est une opportunité pour les participants et autres acteurs d'interagir avec des praticiens. Nous avons nos collègues de l'ONU Femmes et également de l'IDEP avec lesquels vous allez vous engager. Cela permettra pour les uns et les autres, à travers des études de cas, d'avoir une meilleure compréhension, une compréhension approfondie sur les systèmes de soins dans le contexte africain. Donc, d'où ce webinaire. Donc, IDEP encore se réjouit de cette collaboration avec l'ONU Femmes et nous vous souhaitons un excellent webinaire. Merci. À vous, Zainabou.
Merci, Bakary. Donc, maintenant, sur le programme, on va donner la parole à Madame Mireille Kamitatou, Deputy Regional Director de UNIFAM. Sa présentation.
Merci beaucoup. And I'm going to switch to English.
English, okay, all right.
First, let me join Mr. Bakary Dosso in welcoming you all to this masterclass webinar on building resilient care systems through social protection investments and policies actions in Africa. I am delighted to see such a diverse audience, including policymakers, practitioners, and experts from across the continent. I want to also join Mr. Dosso in applauding the fruitful collaboration between IDEP and UN Women over the years in continuously enhancing the knowledge capacity.
Please, I think she is muted.
Excuse me?
Please go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. In continuously enhancing the knowledge capacity of stakeholders across the continent by equipping you with tools and insights, we hope to empower you to drive meaningful change towards inclusive and sustainable development in your respective countries. 2025 marks the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. The declaration laid a blueprint for women's rights and girls' rights worldwide. However, 30 years on, no country has achieved gender equality, nor is expected to do so by 2030. Gender equality is an essential element in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and a precondition for economic growth itself. Therefore, closing gender gaps and labor force participation in sub-Saharan Africa could boost GDP by 10% on average. Yet, women's sizable responsibilities for unpaid domestic and care work are limiting their participation and full contribution to the economy. Around the world, over 700 million outside the labor market because of unpaid care responsibilities, compared to 40 million men. Women are overrepresented in low-pay, part-time, informal, and low-quality jobs. On the continent in 2023, only 17.9% of African women were covered by social protection benefits, such as pensions, unemployment benefits, and maternity protection, compared to 84.8% in Europe and Southern Asia. With the effects of climate change and the demographic dynamics on the continent, countries' development strategies need to integrate accessible, quality, and affordable gender-responsive care infrastructures. Public, private, and innovative investments in social protection care systems can reduce women's poverty, improve their access to paid work, and their ability to cope with shocks. These investments are good business. They're not only beneficial for women, but also for the whole economy. Over the last 15 years, UN Women has advanced the care and social protection agenda by supporting policymakers and change makers through policy advisory, programming, research, and locally tested solutions to shift social norms. Our new strategy to transform care systems in West and Central Africa by 2030 offers a progressive blueprint for increasing access to care solutions, for grassroots women and girls, and supporting women-led care entrepreneurship in the region. With this strategy, we stand committing to working with you to build equitable and sustainable economies and societies. I am confident that today's webinar will lead to meaningful insights and actionable solutions to improve the lives of women across the continent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mireille, for those opening remarks on behalf of UN Women. Thank you very much. Next on the program, Mam Diarra.
Yes, hello.
Yes, is the poll ready to be?
We've been having trouble making it work. I think it's with Charles right now. So if we can just start the poll, because I don't seem to have access.
Okay. So we can move on with the program.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Macho, you can start.
Yes, Zaina.
Yes, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I will switch in French. Interpreters. So, we will be going to present, nous allons présenter les aspects de formation et de renforcement de capacité et de recherche du côté de l'IDEP en vue d'appuyer la formulation de politiques et de stratégies en matière de protection sociale. Next slide, please. La situation, d'abord, nous commencerons par une situation africaine sur le développement socio-économique pour compléter ce que Madame la directrice et Bakary ont juste évoqué sur la situation dans le continent en matière de développement socio-économique. Alors, ensuite, nous allons parler de la place de la protection sociale dans les différents agendas du développement au niveau global et au niveau régional. Et ensuite, nous parlerons des perspectives de l'IDEP dans le cadre de la promotion du développement des gains sociaux inclusifs. Et ce programme entre dans ce cadre-là. Nous constaterons que, next slide, please, Mme Diarra. Nous constaterons que nous sommes à 10 ans depuis l'avènement de l'agenda 2063 en 2015 et nous sommes aussi à 5 ans de 2030, l'horizon de l'atteinte des ODD. Et 17% de réalisation de ces objectifs sont estimés en ce moment. Et les perspectives de parvenir à ce développement centré sur l'être humain et d'atteindre le développement durable sont assez fragiles avec ce que Bakary disait tout à l'heure, la croissance démographique et que 8 à 11 millions de jeunes arrivent sur le marché du travail chaque année, alors que 3 millions d'emplois salariés formels sont créés seulement par an, selon des prévisions de la Banque mondiale. Une autre estimation statistique faite par Statista prévoit qu'en 2017, l'Afrique continuera de concentrer une grande partie de la population mondiale vivant dans une situation de pauvreté. Alors que, prochaine slide s'il vous plaît, la région connaît une croissance économique dans presque toutes ces sous-régions, même après la crise liée à la pandémie de COVID-19. Cependant, il est constaté aussi que 20% de la population est classée en situation d'insécurité alimentaire, tandis qu'encore 54% n'ont pas accès à des services d'assainissement de base. C'est ce que le rapport sur le développement durable de l'Afrique a sorti. Alors que la croissance, elle est elle est correcte. Donc, la COVID aussi, avec les autres crises qui ont suivi, ont amplifié le gap en matière de protection sociale. Et cela a constitué un sursaut dans le domaine notamment de la couverture en santé. Toutefois, des efforts importants ont été déployés par les États. Prochain slide, s'il vous plaît, par les États, de façon ad hoc et en matière de politique pour renforcer la couverture en protection sociale, mais elle reste faible dans le continent. La protection sociale, elle est encore faible. Vous voyez les pourcentages par rapport aux autres régions. Je pense qu'on a perdu un peu les diapos. L'autre diapo avant, Mme Diarra. Donc, là, la comparaison par rapport aux autres régions du monde, on voit une faible couverture au niveau africain. Prochain slide, s'il vous plaît, Mme Diarra. Et la couverture, elle est un peu encore limitée. Donc, vous voyez, selon les couleurs, là où se situe la majorité des pays africains, sauf pour le nord et pour le sud de l'Afrique, qui avance beaucoup plus rapidement dans ce sens. Prochain slide, s'il vous plaît. Alors que cette protection sociale, elle occupe une place importante dans les agendas de développement, avec le cercle vertueux dans lequel se trouve cette protection sociale, et elle se retrouve aussi très bien dans l'atteinte des ODD, notamment bien explicite. Prochain slide, s'il vous plaît, notamment bien explicite dans les cibles 1-3, cible 3-8, cible 5-4, et cible 8-5 et cible 10-4, très explicite. Et cela ne veut pas dire que tous les autres ODD ne sont pas concernés par l'avancement de la protection sociale. Et aussi, dans le cadre africain, prochain slide s'il vous plaît, Mme Diarra, dans le cadre africain, les leaders se sont engagés depuis des décennies en ratifiant les conventions internationales concernées par la protection sociale et en mettant en place des instruments au niveau régional et en les domestiquant au niveau pays. Depuis des décennies, et plusieurs pays, certains pays comme le Cameroun, Côte d'Ivoire, Éthiopie, le Mali, le Niger, Nigeria, Sénégal et bien d'autres pays avancent bien en mettant en place des stratégies et des politiques pour mieux prendre en charge la protection sociale au niveau de toutes les couches. Le gap persiste quand même. Et c'est en réponse à tout cela qu'il est important de regarder le côté, prochain slide, de regarder l'économie des soins. Elle est vraiment importante dans ce cadre parce que les politiques de protection sociale sont indispensables pour renforcer l'égalité entre les hommes et les femmes et réaliser les droits des femmes. C'est là d'où l'économie des soins est importante à évaluer et valoriser son aspect non rémunéré. Cela pourrait, entre autres, permettre de résorber le gap en matière de protection sociale entre les hommes et les femmes. C'est ainsi qu'il est important aussi de se focaliser sur des politiques mixant des bénéfices contributifs, des bénéfices non contributifs en vue d'élargir la protection sociale aux populations qui ne sont pas encore bénéficiaires. Il y a lieu de mettre en œuvre des politiques qui prennent en compte les entraves structurelles dont les femmes et les filles font face, comme la ségrégation professionnelle basée sur le genre, la différence de rémunération basée sur le genre et le partage des responsabilités qui reste inégal concernant les soins. Sur le graphique suivant, prochain slide, on voit bien, on peut comprendre la faible présence des femmes dans les emplois formels, d'où la différence en matière des bénéfices en pension de retraite. Ceci constitue un exemple. La faible participation est constatée des femmes au marché du travail. Les revenus moyens inférieurs et leur accès limité à des emplois de qualité, associés à des disparités sociétales plus larges que l'on peut penser, notamment la répartition inégale des tâches non rémunérées, ce qui limite leur possibilité de cotiser régulièrement au régime d'assurance sociale, comme le font souvent les hommes. Je vais m'arrêter là pour donner la parole à Zeyna, qui va nous présenter les perspectives de l'IDEP dans ses orientations stratégiques, comme Bakary l'a signalé tout à l'heure. Merci beaucoup, Zeyna.
D'accord, merci Mbadjo. Slide suivant, Mamdara.
J'avance.
Oui, je pense que ici c'est bon. C'est bon. Je vais parler en anglais.
Okay,
IDEP's strategic approach toward promoting inclusive social gains. It aims at reducing poverty, bridging inequality, and fostering long-term development across the continent. So for that reason, within this strategic orientation 2025-2029, and even long before that, for the past 15 years, IDEP has been developing different trainings on social policy, gender, in order to give government the tools to create fair and equitable systems that promote social inclusion, reduce poverty, and support human capital development. So it's within this context that we're having the course on social protection. Huh? Okay, Mamdara, next slide, please. Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Zeynep.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Did you hear everything that I said earlier?
Yes.
We hear you
Yes.
very well.
Thank you. So the next slide. So within this strategic orientation, so we're having a discourse on social protection and care economy in Africa, with thousands of Africans from more than 50 countries. We have people from the civil society, in public administration, from universities. So the aim of this course on social protection and care economy is to provide policymakers and decision makers with comprehensive social protection and care economy strategies, including the design, financing, implementing, and monitoring, and evaluating of related policies. So some of the outcomes of this course on social protection is to enhance understanding of social protection frameworks and care systems, to enhance knowledge of existing tools and mechanisms to address the financial stability of social protection, including insights into the relationship between social protection, public finances, and economic stability. So another outcome for this training is the knowledge and expertise to design, implement, monitor, and evaluate social protection policies, and as well as giving skills to develop strategies for gender sensitive and shock responsive. For the past 5 years, the world has been going through uncertainties with different shocks, COVID-19, and then the cost of living crisis. So all these are taken into account to give participants different perspective on how to deal with those shocks. Ma'am Jara, next slide, please. Okay. So some of the discussions that issues that participants raised during the live session. So I've picked up some of them. So the issue of governance, participants are saying that there is a coordination problem with multiple institutions dealing with social protection. So therefore, actions are not coordinated and lack efficiency. So it would be good to have a poverty mapping throughout each country targeting the people in need. So the issue of the informal sector has been also raised because globally in Africa, 61% of people are working in the informal sector. And in sub-Saharan Africa, that's 86%. So, and most of them, they lack social protection. They do not qualify for targeted social assistance programs. And they suffered dearly during the COVID-19. And even some governments, they included them into the rescue packages. So the issue of the informal sector in Africa and social protection is something that participants have raised. And some countries have taken initiatives that needs to be looked at. So we also have the issue of needs that young people that are not in employment, education, and training. In 2023, there were 53 million. One of the reasons, most of them, they leave school earlier to go to the, mostly joining into the informal sector, then therefore not having the skills needed for employment. So it would be important to have skills development programs to expand skills and job opportunities, especially in the school to work transition. So the problem of demographic trends, I think my colleague talked about it earlier. So this rapid population growth puts a lot of pressure on social services like education and healthcare. There is also a lack of employment opportunities, and that increases illegal migration and mental health issues. Also, underemployment increases demand for unemployment. So the issue of financing social protection. So like Mbatu said earlier, we have a very small percentage, only 18% of the population have access to social protection. So that is mainly due to financial problems, because the taxation in Africa, domestic resource mobilization is not enough. And most African countries, they rely on donors. And most people also, they rely on their families. And we have also the migrant remittances playing a big role. In 2020, it was $78 billion in Africa. So that also some kind of support system that plays a role of social protection in Africa. The issue of monitoring and evaluation also has been raised. So for Africa, 40% of social protection programs, they lack rigorous evaluation, impacting effectiveness according to the World Bank. So a robust evaluation, it ensures that resources meet community needs efficiently, identifies improvement for more effective social protection policies, enhances transparency and accountability, and provides also policymakers with data to refine and scale successful programs. So the other perspective for these countries, this training. So we are finishing this week. So we are going to start community of practice where we have people working together in country groups. So we're encouraging them to implement what they learned in the course and propose solutions for policy formulation and initiatives that can help their countries, and especially support their countries to have inclusive social protection strategies. Thank you. So, okay, since I'm moderating, let me see who's next on the program, and that is Amber. Amber Parkis, policy specialist. Amber? Can you hear me? Hello?
Can't hear you, Zainab.
Yes, we can hear you.
Is Amber connected?
Yes, good morning.
Yes, she
Okay.
is.
morning, Zainab. Thank you so much.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Zainab. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to be joining you in this masterclass webinar. My name is Amber Parks, and I'm a policy specialist on the care economy with UN Women. So in this session, we're going to be looking at building resilient care systems across Africa, and we're really going to be focusing on the policy options, the different entry points, and investment opportunities for transforming care systems. Next slide, please. Great. So to start, I want to set the scene a little bit by highlighting that the care agenda is not a new agenda. As you can see, dating right back to 1979 there on the top left with the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, there's been an evolution in care discourse, in key concepts, in definitions, and in normative frameworks over the last 45 years. And I won't go into detail into all of these milestones here. You can have this slide as a reference, but it is a useful reference slide for us to really look at some of those milestones, particularly for those that may be newer to this agenda. Next slide. Thanks. And so in this slide, as I said, you can see this continued evolution, but here you can see I'm just looking at the last 5 years from 2020 up to 2025. You can see in those last 5 years, we now have 4 global resolutions on the care economy, the first ever UN system policy guidance on the care economy, which I'm going to speak in more depth in a minute. And later this year, we'll also have the first ever statistical definition of care work led by the ILO. And I'm sure you can all probably guess what a major catalyst was for this uptick in momentum. I think if the moderator can click one more time, you can see it's on the left there. It's the COVID-19 pandemic. So, but really important to remember, while the COVID pandemic may have been the catalyst for this increased momentum, as we saw on that previous slide, there really has been a lot of work, a lot of thinking, a lot of momentum created in the 45 years prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, we'll dive into now the main content of this session, which is to really look at the policy options and entry points for transforming care systems right across different contexts and continents. And our framework for this discussion is a recent UN system policy guidance on transforming care systems. This is a recent initiative led by the UN Deputy Secretary General. It was coordinated by UN Women together with the ILO, UNDP, OHCHR, and ECLAC, but validated right across the UN system and with contributions from external experts from across the globe. And this document is significant and useful for all of us because it provides us with a common definition of what care work is, a common vision, a common set of principles, of approaches, an analytical framework, and policy options and entry points, which is where we're really going to spend our time on. So it's a really useful reference tool for all of us, either when we're maybe building out a national roadmap on the care economy, thinking about what an action plan might look like, what a national care strategy or policy might look like. Next slide, please. Yep, next one. And great. So to start, the policy guidance sets us out with a common vision for transformation. And I won't go, just stay there, thank you. I won't go into the definition in detail. You can see it up on the slide here, but there are some particular elements that I think that are particularly inspiring for all of us in this vision. You can see it talks about care being at the center of thriving, just and sustainable economies, of care as a public good that's essential and skilled work, as being critical for equal participation and treatment in society, and not being reduced to a commodity or an obligation. So really a strong call for all of us to reimagine the current social organization of care work. Next slide, please. Thanks. And I can see we have some nice drawings on the slide deck there. So the guidance also sets us to begin with 5 key principles to underpin the transformation of care systems, regardless of the context or intervention type. These 5 principles, they're fairly recognizable, I think, to lots of us, but important to keep in mind when we're thinking about designing inclusive and equitable care systems. The first is human rights-based, the second is state accountability, third is universality, fourth is transformative, and the fifth is leaving no one behind. Next slide, please. The guidance also elaborates for us a set of key approaches, 8 key approaches for us to consider when we're designing our policy interventions across different contexts. The first is really important. It's about positioning care as a public good to be valued and invested in, rather than positioning or framing it as a burden to be reduced. This is really important for framing how we then frame certain policy responses. The second and third is using a context-specific and a life course approach. Fourth is ensuring that interventions enable both care and gender equality. So, for example, thinking about if we have a very generous maternity leave policy, but a very minimal paternity leave policy, that intervention might be care enabling. It allows the quality provision of care, but it further perpetuates the gender stereotype or gender norms about women being solely the caregivers. We then have fifth approach, which is working at different levels, particularly thinking about subnational and municipal levels where we know we can make good policy inroads and make the case for scaling up investments. 6 is anchoring our policies in national and international law so that they don't change when we get changes in government. 7th is making sure when we're doing the macro and micro simulations, that for the investment case, we're considering both the short and long run dividends on our investments. And I'll talk about that shortly when we talk about a policy tool to do this. And finally, really importantly for all of us as policymakers and working in civil society, using a cross-disciplinary and intersectoral or whole of government and whole of society approach. Next slide, please. Okay, so the UN System Policy Guidance also provides us with a common analytical framework from which to begin making our policy entry points. And it starts at the starting point, the ILO 5R framework, which built out from the 3R framework. You can see on the right here, for those of you familiar with the 5R framework, it's a recognition, the reduction, redistribution, reward, and representation of paid and unpaid care work. And in the policy paper, we add a 6 or cross-cutting R that you can see highlighted here in red on the right of resourcing. And we added resourcing as a 6R to this framework because it's recognizing the importance of long-term financing and macroeconomic policy reform to enable the development of comprehensive care systems. So that's a new addition in the paper, building on the 5R framework. Next slide, please. Great. Okay, great. So now we're getting into the main part of the framework and of our session, where we're really diving deep into what are the policy options and entry points for transforming care systems. We have our principles, we have our approaches, we have our analytical framework. Where do we start and what can we do across our different contexts? I think we've just lost the slide there. Shall I keep talking? Okay, you're going to restart the slide. No problem. Let me just start talking while we're waiting for the slides to restart. So thanks so much. So these policy options and entry points, we can think about this like a menu of options. In the paper, we've got the policy options and entry points across those 6R policy outcomes that I mentioned. It's not exhaustive, but it is very comprehensive. So again, really useful for us as policymakers or perhaps in civil society to really think about what different options and entry points might be for our different contexts. You can see here in policy outcome 1, which is, if you remember, recognizing the value of care work and the rights of care recipients and care receivers. We have 3 entry points here. We have grounding our work in international laws and normative and policy frameworks, making sure we're adopting those international human rights and labor laws and normative frameworks related to care sector policies. The second entry point is integrating care within social and economic and humanitarian plans and strategies. The third entry point is care-related data. Here we're thinking about time use data, but also other qualitative data as well that can allow us to make evidence-formed policymaking. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, thanks. Great, and so in this UN system policy guidance, you'll also find after each of the policy options and entry points, there are examples of promising practices from right around the world under each of the policy outcome areas. I've just highlighted here the one we have from the continent in Kenya, which is speaking about the first national time use survey, which is a really good best practice example because the data from that national time use survey is being used to inform the development of Kenya's first national care policy. So a really great example there. Next slide, thanks. We then have our second policy outcome too. I'm just going to skip through these all the different policy outcomes that are in the paper to give you a sense. We're going to go quite quickly, but it will allow you to get a sense of what's in this framework so that you can go and use it for your work when you go back after this masterclass. So here under policy outcome 2, which is reducing labor-intensive indirect unpaid care work, really important here that we're recognizing that what we're wanting to reduce here is only our indirect or non-people care. We don't want to actually reduce care for people, our direct care. We have 2 entry points here. The first is physical infrastructure. Here we're talking about things like piped water, household electricity, sanitation, public transport, obviously really important right across the continent for many of our contexts. Second entry point is energy and labor-saving equipment and technologies. Again, very important across the African continent, as you all know. Here we're talking about things like energy-efficient stoves, water harvesting technologies, also including vacuum cleaners and washing machines. This is about, as I mentioned, reducing the time for household domestic tasks or indirect people tasks. Next slide, please. You can click twice. And again, some promising practices. We have a nice example here from Egypt, just for reference. I won't go into detail. Next slide. Thank you. Great. And so our third policy outcome, if you remember, is about redistribution. What do we mean by redistribution? We mean redistributing unpaid care work between households, where a lot of this work sits, between households, the state, businesses or the market and community, and of course, within the household between genders, as we know, is also really important. And we have 4 entry points under this policy outcome. The first 2 you can see here, if you just go back, is care services. Just back one slide. The first entry point is care services, and the second entry point is social protection. So under care services, again, really important for a lot of our areas of work, a very common entry point for many of us. This is everything from our childcare, healthcare, early childhood development, also care and support for persons with disabilities, community-based support, etc. That second entry point, social protection, is everything we just heard in that previous presentation. So really great that we've had that as our setting. Next slide. We'll go to the next 2 entry points under policy outcome 3. We have care supporting workplaces. If you just click forward twice, we have care supporting work. Yeah, thank you. Care supporting workplaces. This is everything our parental leave, on-site breastfeeding and childcare, flexible working where that's relevant, paid return to work support, and so forth. Our 4th entry point, also very relevant for many of us, is work on social norms to address gender and other stereotypes. Next slide, please. We also have some promising practices, again, for this outcome. And here I've highlighted an example from Ethiopia with an early childhood development initiative. Next slide, please. We'll go to outcome 4. If we remember outcome 4 in our 6R framework, this is about rewarding paid care workers. Here we have 3 policy entry points that we can think about. The first, probably also very relevant and familiar to many of us, is the decent work and equal rights. Second entry point is safe and healthy working environments for paid care workers. And the third, also really important, around standardization and certification of care work to enable the quality provision of care work. Next slide, thank you. We also will jump forward. We've got reward policies in action here, and a nice example from South Africa with the implementation of the Domestic Workers Act, which recognizes domestic workers as workers and provides a minimum wage and other decent working conditions. Next slide, thanks. We'll jump to our 5th policy outcome, which, if you remember, is representation and meaningful participation of caregivers and care recipients and their organizations. Here we've got 2 policy entry points. If you remember, here we've got freedom of association, right to dialogue and collective bargaining. We also have participation in decision-making for, as I said, caregivers and care receivers. Next slide, please. We'll go, and here's some examples, nothing from the continent, unfortunately, here, but for reference. And skip forward to our final. Great. Our final policy outcome area is our cross-cutting outcome on resourcing for comprehensive care systems. If you remember, it's 3 entry points here: costing and tracking care investments. I'm going to speak about this in 1 second, a tool that we have to do this. Care and gender responsive budgeting, very important, as well as expanding fiscal space. Next slide, thank you. And here's just an example from Morocco for that policy outcome. Next slide. And we'll skip forward again. Thank you. Yeah, great, thank you. So here I just want to elaborate on what we mean by care systems. You might have heard us speaking in this presentation and across the masterclass on care systems. We also use a little bit the term the care economy. So what do we mean by a care system? Well, at UN Women, we talk about our care system as involving these different components of direct care services, direct care sector policies around childcare, elder care, disability care, and so forth, and our physical care enabling infrastructure. All of those components working in a coordinated and integrated way with our wider sectoral policies, with standards and regulation, laws and conventions, communication, training, certification, and other enabling macroeconomic policies. So that's just a reference for when we're talking about care systems to understand what we mean by that. Next slide. I want to quickly move on to the final part then of this session, which is looking at then investment opportunities and how we identify those investment opportunities as policymakers and civil society. So here I want to talk about a policy tool that UN Women developed together with the ILO and macroeconomists. And this tool supports policymakers to make the economic argument or the economic case for care services investment by identifying the required expenditures and simulating the social and economic returns. So let's take a look. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And thanks so much. Muriel has just popped the link into the chat there. So this tool is really important because it makes, as I said, it makes the case for care investments by answering 3 very simple but critical questions. It says, what are the current gaps in our care services, both in terms of coverage and in terms of quality? And then it asks, well, how much will it cost to plug those gaps? And then the third question on the left there is, what will be the social and economic returns of making these investments, or what are our returns on investments? The tool then allows us to gives us a methodology to estimate these following social and economic returns. Really importantly, the first is decent job creation, directly in care sectors and in associated sectors. The second is the narrowing of gender gaps in employment. The third is giving us an estimate of the self-financing potential of care services. And the fourth is estimating earnings generation in both in the long run. So This is a really important analysis. On the left, the first 2 points allow us to develop an evidence-based policy roadmap for the expansion of care services. And the third point around assessing various economic and social returns allow us to explore the economic rationale for increased public spending on care services in view of the social and economic returns. Next slide, please. And so what the tool allows us to do using a macro-micro simulation model is analyzing the demand side effects of investing in care services. So if you see here, this is jobs generation, this is decreasing unemployment, it's increasing women's labor participation, and looking at demand-led growth and decreasing poverty. So these are the effects that we're looking at simulating through the tool. Next slide, please. And here I just want to briefly outline the types of findings or analytical insights that you can get from applying this tool in your different contexts. These are some findings of when we've applied the tool in Argentina, in Egypt, Ethiopia, Morocco, and Nepal, but we've applied it in many countries and several more across the African continent as well. For example, when we applied it in these 5 countries, we found that the outlay of public expenditures on care services was not only contributing to providing quality care, really importantly, but also to jobs generation of a major magnitude. So for example, in Ethiopia, we simulated an employment creation by investing in the childcare services, was estimated at 5 million new decent care jobs, with almost 2/3 of those jobs going to women, very substantially. And of course, when we have substantial jobs generation, more people in the paid labor market, that also means substantial earnings generation, with positive implications then for increased tax revenues and therefore the self-financing potential of these care investments. So for example, in Egypt, our simulation showed that we would need a 4.5% of GDP needed to get this coverage and quality of care services. So that's not cheap, but we found that the earnings generated, the revenues generated from that investment could cover up to 41% or almost half of those total costs. Next slide, please. Finally, here, this is just to show, to highlight where this policy tool and other similar methodologies on the macro micro simulation has been applied. You can see here several countries, other countries across the continent. So I want to point those out so that you can also go and have a look at some of those findings. These are really important and very useful pieces of information when we're doing our policy advocacy. This has been a particularly powerful tool to use because it allows policymakers to both quantify the required expenditures that are needed, how much does it cost, but not only that, to actually see the multiplier effects of these expenditures across multiple different policy outcomes of fiscal, employment, and social policy. So really allowing policymakers to understand investing in care services and infrastructure as an investment opportunity. From there, I think we'll just skip forward. I think we'll skip through this slide. You might need to click through a couple of times. This is a reference around some key languages. Language and framing, but in the interest of time, I want to end it here. Thank you so much for being with us in this session and looking forward to any discussion afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, now we have Q&A. Donc, pour les participants, si vous avez des questions, on a une session de 20 minutes de, voilà, des questions-réponses. Donc, vous pouvez lever la main en cliquant sur l'icône réaction. So for participants, we have a Q&A session for the next 20 minutes. So if you have questions or contributions, so you may raise your hands using the icon at the back of your screen, reactions.
Il y a Monsieur José Depco qui a levé sa main.
D'accord, d'accord. Allez-y, José. Je ne les vois pas. José?
Thank you. Thank you. Here am I. I would like to thank all the presenters for the insights inputs for this masterclass. I have two questions. The first one for Zainab, Kena, and colleagues, and the last one to Amber Parks. Zainab, can you, considering the context of a crisis,
Charles, il y a quelqu'un qui dérange dans le background là. John?
Alors, Mme Diarra, est-ce que je dois reprendre la main pour organiser un peu tout ça?
Il y a aussi ma collègue Muriel qui est là, hein, mais il y a quelqu'un qui avait quelqu'un qui parlait en dessous, mais
Oui, en fait, moi, je ne peux pas fermer les micros parce que j'ai donné la main à
m'avait
Mme Diarra.
donné. Ok, d'accord. Donc, vous pouvez reprendre la main.
Ok, merci. C'est bon, Zainabou, allons-y.
D'accord, merci. Julie, can you say it again? Sorry. We had a background noise.
Yeah, you are right. So I was saying that we all agree that practical work is what is the best thing that should thrive Africans countries economy and their populations. But in the context of a crisis and underdevelopment that all of the majority of African countries are experiencing, how can you imagine that we can implement efficiently on paid care situation? We can deal with that in order we can have a true social protections as we are all happy. My second question for Amber Parks is that she said that we unpaid care words should be paid back, and I would like also to ask her, how can we pay this one for them? Is it about granting of salaries to women? How? I really wanted to have a valuable strategies in order we can help our authorities or our countries to change things. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do you have somebody else who raised their hand, because I cannot see them?
Yes, good afternoon or good evening. This is Eva
Yes.
Kopa from Kenya.
Okay.
I just have one question, or rather an issue that probably this gives me an opportunity to raise it with the UN Women. We have had a debate around the term rewarding, and the argument has been that when we use this term rewarding, it looks like it is a favor we are doing to the care workers, and that it is also a term that is not very useful when we are talking about issues that are surround the money economy, or rather when you are engaging economists who look at everything from the money side. So the proposal was that you remove the word reward, we replace it with the word compensate. So I work in the care space. I'm very happy with the new developments, and I'm happy that we have had this masterclass. It has been very helpful for me, and that's the only issue that I had, or rather, that's the only thing that I needed to raise in this masterclass. Thank you very much.
Hello,
All
hello,
right.
hello.
Oui?
Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Martin Wanda from Uganda. I want to thank all the presenters for the very good presentations. And my major concern has been on the UN tool. It's a very good one, but of course, during the presentation, it was wide and the presenter had to move very fast. Is there a possibility that we shall access some of these presentations? I would appreciate, so that we can internalize this. Thank you so much for the presentations.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Who else?
Good afternoon.
Yes.
It's Grace from Zimbabwe. Thank you very much for the presentation. My question revolves around policy in relation to shocks. My understanding is the shocks that affect women in the context under discussion are seriously embedded in their households. For example, the shocks they suffer from their households are at times of immense significance than maybe the impact that maybe COVID-19 is making. How can we make sure that police addresses such?
Okay, thank you, Grace. Grace, you finished, yeah?
We also have finished.
Okay, thank you, Grace. Who else?
We have 2 hands up. Next is Beata.
Okay, Beata.
Yes, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to thank the presenters and everyone who was involved. These are good lessons that we are learning so that Africa becomes a better continent. And I know with the resources, we'll be able to scale up and do the best for each and everyone. This is my contribution at this point in time. Otherwise, thank you very much. We are learning a lot.
Good. Thank you, Beata. One more question, and I think we can start answering.
Okay, we have Kwajane, sorry if I misspelled the name.
I'm Kwazanai from Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So Grace has gone before me. I'm here too. I really am learning a lot. Where I think our policy framework and our tools are silent is on equal opportunities for paid work among persons with disabilities, both male and female. Social protection through sheltered employment and such initiatives. I was listening, I didn't get it. I hope it's coming later in today's session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Who's starting? Macho, me, you, or Amber? Okay, let me start with the question on the shocks. Okay, so during COVID-19, which is a major shock, as you know, it was a shock and a big surprise. But African government, they reacted quickly with more than 230 social protection measures to support families, informal sector. So it's really a major lesson in terms of dealing with shocks. But then after we had the cost of living crisis. So the issue we have now is that we need to build a social protection that is shock responsive. That means learning lessons from COVID-19 and from the cost of living crisis, and have preparedness and disaster recovery plan. That needs to be in place. Without that, it would be very difficult to deal with successive shocks, shocks coming in succession. So COVID-19 was a lesson that made many African countries react. So we need to pursue in that, and also maybe try to find more ways of financing social protection to be able to deal with those shocks by building shock responsive with preparedness and disaster recovery plans. Okay, thank you, Amber, Mbacho. Who else wants to answer?
Yeah, I think I think Dana, you mentioned whatever Yes, is linked to COVID crisis and the responsiveness that is needed. And I think that will not be long because Amber would be in a better place to respond about. One thing is policies that we elaborate. The other thing is how to implement. And the implementation is at this time the more important for our countries and for our officials that are here listening. So responsiveness is very important, and building resilience and social protection would help build resilience for those workers and those that are outside the formal decent job, and those that are that have in charge the care part of the society. I will stop there. Thank you. Over.
Okay, thank you very much, Macho. Amber?
Thanks so much, Zinabu and Matteo, really for giving some really thoughtful answers, and of course to all of our participants for those really insightful questions. Allow me to start, I think, with Jose, your really interesting question about how can we pay unpaid care work, or should we pay unpaid care work? This is such a common question, and it's a really good one to have in these discussions. So thank you for raising it. And when we're speaking about unpaid care work, we're not actually trying to say that it should be paid or compensated. We want to always ensure there is an amount of unpaid care, particularly for people. Think of all that childcare or caring for elderly relatives and parents and siblings that should remain unpaid and within the household. The issue is that it's currently a large amount of that work is within the household. And what we want to try to do is redistribute, as I mentioned in the 6R framework, redistribute some of that responsibility away from just only in the household to also looking at how we can support that, for example, in workplaces or in the marketplace or across different aspects of the community as well. So when we say recognize the value of care work, we don't actually mean to pay for it. We mean recognizing the value of it by, for example, doing surveys to understand how much unpaid care work is happening, measuring that care work, including that in our economic and social policy making. So it's a little bit confusing, I agree, the language. When we're saying unpaid care work, it sounds maybe like we want to make it paid. But we always want to ensure that there is some unpaid or some of that uncommodified care work happening within the house. Of course, so redistribution also means bringing some of that into the market or into the state sphere, as I mentioned, through the paid care sector. I hope that helps to clarify. Eva, you made a really interesting comment, a reflection, I think, around the aspect that maybe the language of reward doesn't resonate across different contexts. I think that's really interesting, fascinating to hear. And compensate, I agree, is perhaps a better word to use. I think it's really about, we have the 5 or the 6R framework. So it's a little bit about, it's convenient, I guess, to use the term reward because it starts with R. Of course, I would say use always the language that resonates in your particular context. You can refer to the 5 or 6R framework and then just use the term that makes most sense for your context. Just to point out that when we're talking about reward, as you saw when I went through those policy options, it's not just about compensation or payment. That would be one thing to keep in mind when you're choosing what word to use. Reward under the 6R framework is both adequate financial compensation, but also about decent working conditions, safe and healthy working environments, and it's about standardization and certification of care work, which is really important for a lot of our care sectors, from childcare to disability care, to make sure our care workers have standardized, certified levels of qualifications. So one thing to remember when we're speaking about that 4th R of reward. Ben Martin, I think to question or comment just around the content. Yes, I apologize. I went so quickly. I wanted to let people know the overview of what's in the paper. The slides will be shared. I think Muriel has shared the link, and please do go directly to the policy paper itself. Muriel, perhaps you can just post it here again for everyone. I know you posted it before, but please go directly to the source and you can see all of that information in more detail in the actual paper. And I think to our last I really appreciate the last comment from our colleague Guadenzai around equal opportunities for paid work for persons with disabilities. I think this comes into many aspects of this masterclass. And just to say, in this UN system policy guidance, we have a really strong emphasis, and I didn't mention it in the presentation, so my apologies, but it's a very strong emphasis, particularly on the rights of persons with disabilities. And that is a unique contribution of this guidance. You'll see a lot of language around persons with disabilities right across that 6R framework, from the recognition right up into representation. So just to say that, please to look in that paper as well for some wording. My apologies that I didn't highlight it enough, but I really appreciate you reminding us to make sure that this is central to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amber. We're taking a few more questions before moving on to the next.
I think we can move to the next. I can see two hands up and some question in the chat, but most of the questions that are related to the case study. So perhaps we can move to the case study and come back in the next Q&A session after that.
Okay, all right. So next is Muriel.
Yes, Diara.
Oui. C'est bon.
Hello, colleagues. Well, we've shared the presentations, the link in the chat so you can follow. We have this in French and English. The slide here in French, but perhaps I will be speaking in English. My name is Muriel Amitoglu. I'm the Regional Feminist Economist for UN Women Western Central Africa Regional Office. And we are really happy to have you all here for this masterclass. We hope that in the first part, you've learned a lot with the new concept, and perhaps now we'll move into some case studies to show how on the ground we can implement policies and programming to integrate care and gender responsive social protection in our national development strategy. Diara, I'm not seeing your screen anymore. Yes. Next slide, please. Yes. So the first case study is an example from Senegal on how you can use what we call a bottom-up approach to integrate the question of social protection to actually reduce and redistribute the time and the intensity that rural women spend on unpaid care. So the concept here from the National Time Use Survey conducted in Senegal in 2021, women spend on average 4 hours and 9 minutes a day on unpaid care work compared to 30 minutes for men. And that is just the national average. When you move to the rural areas, they can spend up to 12 hours a day to these unpaid care activities. And a study that UN Women conducted pointed out that you have 45% of these rural women that need to take care of a family member with a chronic disease or with disability. And women have identified unpaid care, especially health, as a key constraint for their income generating activities. And during that survey, we found that less than 7% of women have access to any type of social protection or health insurance. Other type of unpaid care activities have been mentioned, such as the lack of childcare accessible and adequate quality childcare centers at the rural level, and also the lack of equipment to reduce the time and the intensity to unpaid care activities. Next slide, please. So based on that, UN Women piloted what we are calling a bottom-up approach with the 3R program. The program aimed to contribute to reducing all the structural obstacles or bottlenecks that women face in participating in the economy. So the program was launched in Senegal, in Rwanda, and also in South Africa for the first phase. In Senegal, we work with the REFAN, which is the network of rural women in the agricultural sector in the north part of Senegal. And it was a multi-level program working at the local level with the municipalities to really identify women's needs related to unpaid care and how we can integrate that into the local development plan, working with women to provide access to time-saving technology, also working on innovative solutions for them, and with the evidence at the local level, going back to the policymakers, saying that we really need to have a national reforms around care in the country. Next slide. I will just highlight some of the key elements related to social protection, which is the topic of the debate here. What we did is, with 45% of women that need to take care of a family member with a chronic disease or living with disability, we made a partnership with the National Health Agency, l'Agence Nationale de Couverture Maladie, to adapt their services to the rural women. So there was a mapping of what were the key needs from these women, and then they tailored their services. And then it was a group membership for those rural women from the REFAN with reduced entry cost. There was also a lot of advocacy and awareness raising through training via the mobile phones in the local language to make sure that women really understand the opportunity and what are the type of services that the health coverage can offer. And also identifying a sustainable mechanism because most of the health insurance is self-contributory, but how we can make sure that there could be a contribution from other sources, for example, from the municipalities or grouping women together throughout the network. To date, we have more than 7,000 rural women and their family members that have joined. And then feedback that we receive from the ground in the second phase of the project that is really helping women to save time and then to go to, for their activities. Next slide. The second one is thinking about the sustainability. How we can make sure that the question of unpaid care work is mainstream into local development plan. So we had a partnership with the regional development agencies in Senegal, 2 of them, the one from Saint Louis and Ziguinchor. What we did is each municipality that developed each 5 years their development plan and investment plan. So we work with them to design a guideline on how to integrate solution of unpaid care work into the local development plan. We provided technical assistance and capacity building to the local actor for them to first understand the linkages between care work and development goals, social development, and also how to prioritize element of care into the local development and financing plan. When you take local development plan, you have several activities that related to care, either having a construction, healthcare centers, wells, water in the community, but it's not explicit how you can link in to have a comprehensive care system. So the tool really helps you. I will put the link in the chat very soon. You can access the link. And then after that, there was group discussions with women in each village. And then local stakeholders dialogue with all the actors to really identify their key needs. And to date, we have 6 municipalities in Senegal that have integrated those questions in their local development plan in 2023. And we are supporting 19 of them for the same exercise now. So these are just some examples that I wanted to share. And then we'll move on to the next case study that will talk about how to integrate gender-responsive social protection into the national strategies in Côte d'Ivoire. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Muriel. Dr. Yeboah Kwasi, vous avez la parole. Yeboah Kwasi. Muriel, est-ce qu'il est connecté?
Oui, il est connecté. Oui, il est connecté, son micro est ouvert, mais je l'entends pas.
D'accord. Docteur Kwasi, vous pouvez prendre la parole. Moi, je ne l'entends pas. Bon.
Yeboah, est-ce que tu nous entends? Nous, on ne t'entend pas.
Docteur, si vous avez porté un casque, il faut peut-être l'enlever et parler directement.
Son micro est fermé, hein?
Oui. Bon, on lui donne quelques secondes pour voir si son micro marche.
Ok, d'accord.
Son micro n'est plus fermé, mais ça réagit.
Il doit avoir un problème de
Allô,
son.
est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui,
Oui,
on
là,
t'entend maintenant.
Là, c'est bon.
Bon, j'ai dû prendre un casque rapidement pour voir. Bon, excusez-moi pour tout ça. Bon, merci beaucoup. Je pense que je vais faire la présentation en français pour essayer de avoir un peu de diversité. Voilà. S'il n'y a pas d'inconvénient.
Non, pas du tout.
OK.
Allez-y.
OK. OK. Donc, si je vais vous parler de la protection sociale sensible aux gens économiques de soins, cadre de la Côte d'Ivoire, je suis Dr. Yeboah Kwasi, économiste national, ONU Femmes, Bureau Côte d'Ivoire. Et donc, je vais commencer par présenter de façon brève la situation du marché d'emploi en Côte d'Ivoire. OK. Voilà. Au niveau de la Côte d'Ivoire, quand on regarde le marché d'emploi, il y a une faible participation des femmes au marché du travail en Côte d'Ivoire. Ici, il y a le taux d'emploi chez les femmes est de 54,7% selon les dernières statistiques, contre 70,9% pour les hommes. Malgré la croissance économique, la forte croissance économique que la Côte d'Ivoire a connue depuis 2012, le taux de chômage persiste et reste élevé en Côte d'Ivoire, compte tenu des sources de croissance qui créent très peu d'emplois. Et donc, le taux de chômage et du sous-emploi est plus fort chez les jeunes femmes par rapport aux jeunes hommes. Chez les jeunes femmes, ça se situe à 15,5%. Et chez les jeunes hommes, ça se situe à 11%. Et d'abord, au niveau aussi de la précarité de l'emploi. C'est vrai, les femmes participent moins au marché du travail, mais elles sont aussi plus présentes dans le secteur des emplois les plus vulnérables. Quand vous regardez, beaucoup de femmes occupent des emplois vulnérables. 82,5% des femmes actives occupent des emplois vulnérables.
Docteur, votre micro, s'il vous plaît. Excusez-moi.
Charles, il y a quelqu'un qui a ouvert son micro, il faut fermer.
Oui, oui. En voulant le fermer, j'ai fermé celui du docteur. Docteur, s'il
Ah,
vous plaît.
d'accord. Désolé.
C'est bon? Vous m'entendez?
Allez-y.
Voilà, ok. Donc, je disais que les femmes occupent des emplois vulnérables. Beaucoup plus de femmes sont dans des secteurs où les emplois sont vraiment vulnérables. En Côte d'Ivoire, c'est autour de 82% pour les femmes, contre 63% pour les hommes. Les femmes sont sous-représentées dans les emplois salariés en Côte d'Ivoire. Le taux est de 15% pour les femmes et 30% chez les hommes. Et les femmes sont plus en majorité dans le secteur informel. Les femmes actives sont plus dans le secteur informel en Côte d'Ivoire et le taux se situe autour de 94,5% pour les femmes contre 85% pour les hommes. Et donc, naturellement, comme en Côte d'Ivoire, les femmes sont moins susceptibles de participer au marché du travail et être employées, naturellement, elles ont un faible accès à la protection sociale. En Côte d'Ivoire, compte tenu du niveau élevé de l'informalité du secteur informel, la plupart des emplois se trouvent dans le secteur informel. Et donc, très peu, seulement une petite partie de la population a accès à la protection sociale. En Côte d'Ivoire, selon les statistiques du ministère de l'Emploi et de la Protection sociale, seulement 10% de la population ivoirienne bénéficie d'une protection sociale. Et le régime de protection sociale en Côte d'Ivoire repose principalement sur un modèle contributif, c'est-à-dire que vous travaillez, vous cotisez sans interruption de carrière et à la fin, vous bénéficiez d'une pension de retraite et tous les autres avantages associés. Mais c'est un système qui pénalise les femmes, puisque comme vous avez vu les statistiques, les femmes sont moins présentes dans le secteur formel et donc sont souvent confrontés à des interruptions de carrière, et souvent liées à la maternité et aux responsabilités familiales. Et donc, les femmes en Côte d'Ivoire bénéficient très peu de protection sociale comparée aux hommes, bien que le niveau général même d'accès à la protection sociale soit très faible en Côte d'Ivoire. Et c'est le cas de plusieurs pays en Afrique subsaharienne. Next slide. Ici, je vais parler on a beaucoup les autres présentations ont mentionné le travail domestique et de soins non rémunérés. Je vais donner quelques statistiques en ce qui concerne la Côte d'Ivoire. Comme partout d'ailleurs dans le monde, il y a une plus grande responsabilité en matière de travail de soins non rémunérés pour les femmes. Au niveau national, selon les dernières enquêtes réalisées en Côte d'Ivoire, les femmes consacrent 4 fois plus de temps que les hommes par jour en moyenne au travail de soins non rémunérés. C'est-à-dire que les femmes consacrent en moyenne 5 heures du temps comparé aux hommes qui consacrent en moyenne 1 heure de temps par jour au travail domestique et de soins non rémunérés en Côte d'Ivoire. Mais ça, c'est la moyenne. Mais sinon, il y a des régions où c'est encore très, très élevé. Dans les régions du Nord en Côte d'Ivoire et du Nord-Ouest, où vraiment le niveau d'accès à l'électricité et à l'eau potable est très faible, les femmes consacrent plus de 20 fois plus de temps que les hommes, par exemple, à la collecte d'eau pour le ménage. Et donc, en milieu rural, en Côte d'Ivoire, selon les enquêtes, 29% des femmes sont des travailleuses familiales non rémunérées, contre seulement 9% pour les hommes. Et donc, les normes sociales perçoivent le travail de soins non rémunérés comme un travail de femme. Ça, c'est que selon les enquêtes réalisées, 84% des personnes interrogées estiment que c'est uniquement aux femmes de préparer les repas pour la famille, quand 77% estiment que il revient aux femmes d'entretenir la maison, de faire la lessive, d'entretenir la cour et de faire des courses. Et donc, vous voyez comment les normes sociales font que le travail de soins non rémunérés se repose essentiellement sur les femmes, ce qui limite leur participation aux activités génératives de revenus et leur autonomisation économique tout court. Next slide. quelle est la solution pour remédier à cette situation? En 2023, la Côte d'Ivoire a élaboré sa stratégie nationale de protection sociale sur la période 2024-2028, en s'appuyant sur les acquis de la protection sociale, le système de protection sociale précédent. Et donc, quels sont les résultats, les principaux résultats attendus dans cette stratégie? L'objectif, c'est de réduire le taux de pauvreté de 39% actuellement à 28% d'ici en 2028 et d'améliorer l'indice d'inégalité de genre de 0,6% actuellement à 0,21 d'ici 2028. Et donc, la stratégie, l'ONU Femmes, le ministère de la Femme, le ministère de l'Emploi et de la Protection sociale a sollicité l'appui d'ONU Femmes afin de faire une revue globale de la stratégie en adoptant pour voir si la stratégie est sensible aux gens ou pas, afin de prendre des mesures pour y remédier. Et donc, la stratégie nationale de protection sociale, l'étude a conclu, l'analyse d'ONU Femmes a conclu que la stratégie prend en compte le genre dans sa conception, dans son cadre général et dans les services, programmes proposés. Toutefois, la stratégie ne mentionne pas d'actions spécifiques pour reconnaître, réduire et redistribuer le travail domestique et de soins non rémunérés. Voilà, donc c'est ce qui, le travail de soins non rémunérés n'est pas pris en compte de façon explicite dans la stratégie nationale de protection sociale de la Côte d'Ivoire. Et donc, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire pour remédier à cela afin d'améliorer le document? Et donc, pour ce faire, un atelier a été organisé en collaboration avec le ministère de la Protection sociale, ONU Femmes et le ministère de la Famille, Femmes et Enfants en Côte d'Ivoire. Un premier atelier a été organisé en 2023. Next slide. Pour accompagner le document des stratégies de protection sociale. Et donc, le premier atelier qui a été organisé en 2023 a abouti à la formulation d'une feuille de route. Donc, une feuille de route provisoire qui n'a pas été adoptée dans le premier atelier. Et donc, en 2024, avec l'appui technique du ministère de l'Emploi, de la Protection sociale, une économiste féministe en Côte d'Ivoire, en l'occurrence en ma personne, avec 2 experts en protection sociale ont été déployés par ONU Femmes pour appuyer le ministère de l'Emploi et de la Protection sociale afin de finaliser la feuille de route qui permette d'adopter, de prendre en compte le travail de soins non rémunérés dans la stratégie nationale de protection sociale de la Côte d'Ivoire. Et donc, la feuille de route a été adoptée en 2024 lors du second atelier en 2024. Et donc, on attend maintenant la création, un décret ministériel, un arrêté ministériel, du moins, c'est un arrêté ministériel portant création du comité national de suivi de la feuille de route qui a été adoptée. Ce qui permettra, la feuille de route contient un ensemble d'actions qui permettent la reconnaissance, la réduction, la redistribution, rémunération et représentation et aussi le financement du travail de soins non rémunérés et autres soins en Côte d'Ivoire. Et donc, next slide. Et donc, voici, comme il n'y a pas assez de temps, voici les axes de la feuille de route que nous avons appelée feuille de route CR de la Côte d'Ivoire. Ce sont les grands axes. D'abord, développer les technologies et les infrastructures qui permettent de réduire le temps de travail et de soins des femmes en Côte d'Ivoire. Et donc, dans chaque axe, sur chaque axe, nous avons dégagé des actions à mener et des activités y afférentes. Et donc, chaque trimestre, je crois 3 fois dans l'année, le comité national de suivi va essayer d'examiner ce qui a été fait, ce qui reste à faire et les goulots d'étranglement, afin que les mesures dégagées dans la feuille de route puissent être adoptées et aussi certaines de ces mesures concernant surtout la protection sociale puissent être intégrées dans la stratégie nationale de protection sociale de la Côte d'Ivoire. Et donc, actuellement, on s'apprête aussi à avoir un atelier avec le Parlement de la Côte d'Ivoire, le Parlement et le Sénat, afin de renforcer leurs capacités, parce qu'il faut comprendre qu'ici, beaucoup ne comprennent pas le concept de travail de soins non rémunérés. Voilà, et donc il faut expliquer ça aux législateurs pour qu'ils puissent bien comprendre afin qu'on puisse aboutir à la reconnaissance de ce travail et aussi à la prise en compte dans les politiques publiques. Et donc, on aura un atelier avec les parlements dans le mois de mars et où on va discuter du travail de soins non rémunérés et sa prise en compte dans la stratégie nationale de développement en Côte d'Ivoire, puisque actuellement, nous sommes en train aussi d'élaborer le programme national de développement 2026-2030 de la Côte d'Ivoire. Et donc, je pense que je vais m'arrêter ici. S'il y a des questions, on pourra encore plus développer. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Dr. Kouassi. Merci pour cette présentation. Donc, je pense qu'on a une autre session Q&A. Donc, les participants, si vous avez des questions, je vois la main de Lungile. Raise your hand. Lungile, can you hear me? OK. Est-ce que les autres, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, on t'entend, Zinabou. Donc, il y a Lungile qui a levé la main et puis il y a Aliou.
Aliou, comme Lungile ne répond pas. Aliou, you have the floor. Aliou?
Yes. Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Yes, it's Lungile from Eswatini.
Oh, hold on while Aliou speaks. Hold on, please.
Okay. Can I continue?
No,
Yes,
we let Aliou finish and then we give you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Aliou, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you to all the presenters. I think it is imperative for Africa to embark on a new social protection regime, especially shifting our perspective. Given the large youth population, instead of us viewing this population solely as a challenge, we can see it as an opportunity. By investing in skills development initiatives, we can help bring young people into full employment. We should also be aware of the huge percentage of working age population of Africa in the informal economy. Rethinking social protection is vital for Africa to tackle the issue of informality in the economy. Furthermore, social protection system should be embodied in our national laws to ensure a deliberate and effective approach to these challenges. My attention is drawn to skills development for women and girls in underserved communities. What can we do to the UN Women to ensure that skills development initiatives through social protection schemes are available for young women and girls in underserved communities? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Aliou. Lungile, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, or morning for others. Yes, it's Lungile Kiniza from Eswatini, a senior planning officer and the population unit. So I'm just happy of this topic, though I just missed somehow, but I was catching up. I've got a challenge, or I just want to make a comment or ask on this issue of unpaid care work as to how can you also assist us as UN Women or IDEP in ensuring that we advocate or capacitate the policymakers or decision makers or planners or parliamentarians or senators on this subject on unpaid care work? Because if I may remember well, I was one of those who were trained by IDEP on the gender responsive budgeting. But we had some challenges because some others, they don't understand well the subject. Even our Central Statistic Office, they don't understand it such that they don't take some surveys on the topic. So I'd like to know as to how can you assist us as countries to ensure that we implement such policy options, because right now we are failing to do that. Another question probably I had I mean, like for instance, the issue of time use surveys, it's not really done in our country that much. So appreciate for those who are already doing it as to how can you assist us as countries to ensure that we also conduct such surveys. And there's this other question I want to know as to this issue of what we've been talking about COVID, that it affected us in so many countries. But there's one aspect that I'm trying to look at, the issue of preparedness, yes. But what are we saying about the issue of having a multi-hazard early warning system for all the sectors? Like for instance, for health, for agriculture, there's this issue of climate issues. So we need to have multi-hazard early warning systems, but there is no advocacy for that. And some others, they don't understand that those issues. So how can we assist us in ensuring that we advocate for the multi-hazard early warning system? Because COVID affected us. It was because we didn't have a multi-hazard early warning system in our health sectors in almost all the countries. Because have we had multi-hazard early warning system, we should have been aware that, okay, there's something that is looming, and now how can we inform other than being proactive? So, and another last comment is on the issue of the unpaid care work. That is, we don't, I remember one time we used to say we need to include it in our GDP. But really, what are we, how can we ensure that we also include it in our GDP? Thank you for now. Bye.
Thank you, Lungile. Amina? Amina Abdirasoul? Amina?
Oui, merci beaucoup. Je voulais d'abord féliciter tous les intervenants pour ces belles prestations. Moi, j'ai quelques questions comme suit. D'abord, à partir de la présentation sur la Côte d'Ivoire, j'avais donc eu l'impression qu'on a eu des stratégies et tout ça qui étaient plus orientées sur les questions de femmes. Alors que durant le cours qu'on avait suivi, on avait parlé des vieux, on avait parlé des enfants, on avait parlé des NEET. Alors, où sont ces parties-là dans ces stratégies? C'était ma première question. Ma deuxième, par rapport à la présentation qui a été faite tout à l'heure, j'avais remarqué qu'il y avait une carte où on avait les données et j'ai vu que, par exemple, mon pays, Madagascar, il figurait parmi les pays où il n'y avait pas de données. Ma question, tout le monde est en train d'avancer. On est très proche je dirais, du délai de l'atteinte des objectifs du développement durable, etc. Alors, ma question, je ne sais pas si moi, je ne suis pas informée ou quoi, mais est-ce qu'il y a des travaux qui ont été effectués avec ONU Femmes, etc., dans mon pays là-dessus? Je voudrais bien savoir qu'est-ce qui est prévu donc pour des pays qui n'ont pas de données. Moi, particulièrement, je voudrais bien comprendre combien il y a de dans mon pays, par exemple. Merci beaucoup.
D'accord, merci Amina. Eugène Kouadio? Eugène?
Oui, merci bien. Bon, Eugène, c'est un peu l'équipe du CIRES, Centre ivoirien de recherche économique et sociale. Alors, relativement à la présentation de Dr. Yekwa, que je salue au passage, c'est d'indiquer que le CIRES, dans le cadre d'une initiative lancée par le CNDI, conduit une étude sur 3 ans. Et le thème, c'est utilisation du four amélioré TICA pour réduire la charge domestique des femmes en milieu rural ivoirien. Et là, il a parlé donc de tout ce qui est technologie, pour voir un peu comment cela peut impacter et permettre aux femmes de dégager du temps pour se consacrer à des activités génératrices de revenus. Alors, c'est une étude qui rentre en plein dans cet objectif. Et l'objectif également, c'est compte tenu du fait qu'on a très peu de données probantes sur ces questions, le CIRES donc bénéficie de de cet appui-là pour non seulement mettre à disposition des informations, mais permettre également à la fin du processus d'arriver vers un plaidoyer pour la reconnaissance et donc tout ce qui est lié aux 3 R et maintenant on va dire les 6 R donc des soins non rémunérés. Donc c'était l'information que je voulais passer pour dire que nous sommes pour le moment à la phase de collecte de données de base. Nous sommes à, on va dire, à 75% donc des données qui pourront nous aider à voir un peu combien de temps les femmes vont passer donc, dans ces activités-là, mais vraiment spécifiquement dans le secteur rural. Donc voilà l'information que je voulais passer pour que vous sachiez un peu que le CIRES travaille également sur ces questions et qu'éventuellement, voilà, on serait disposé à partager et à échanger éventuellement sur les résultats que nous pourrons avoir dans le cadre de ce travail. Je vous remercie.
D'accord, merci Eugène. José Dekpo. José?
Here am I, sorry.
Yes,
thank
yes.
you. I would like to address my first question to Dr. Ahmed Toglu, who has raised the issue of the bottom approach in Senegal. That is very relevant. And I would like to know the different activities that they have been implemented in Senegal for women in order to make a thing change in a rural area, as she mentioned, because she said that they have been following up the women for many years now in order to help them to be more powerful. I really need some activities that they have been doing. Now to Dr. Kwasi, she speaks English et French. Let me speak French. Docteur Kwasi, merci beaucoup pour votre présentation. J'ai beaucoup apprécié cela. Je voudrais savoir, est-ce que vous avez rencontré des difficultés de façon d'abord intersectionnelle sur le terrain par rapport aux bonnes dames? Quelles sont ces difficultés? Je voudrais que vous partagiez ça avec nous, nous qui ne sommes pas en Côte d'Ivoire, pour pouvoir faire une étude comparative avec chez nous. Et l'autre chose, est-ce qu'il y a eu une approche proposée par la population elle-même pour pouvoir faire changer la dynamique de cette hégémonie qui s'observe dans ces milieux-là? Merci.
D'accord, merci José. D'accord. Muriel, je te donne la parole. Après au docteur, après je prends moi parce qu'il y a des questions, je pense, qui sont pour moi. Muriel?
Oui, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, oui.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup. Thanks very much for the question. I'm trying to go over them. Okay. Let's start by the question on what UN Women can do or what we do. So for the Western Central Africa Regional Office that we cover 24 countries. So we've launched last year our Feminist Economist Task Force. It's a task force of economists experts that are working directly at the country level with the different policymakers, civil society, women organizations, research institutes on the topic of care economy, unpaid care. So we've been supporting all the stakeholders first to reduce the knowledge gap. If possible, in some countries, conducting official time use survey with National Statistic Agency, or if not, conducting other type of surveys to quantify the time that women, men, girls, boys are spending on unpaid care. You have different methodology to quantify that. You have the official time use survey with the ILO methodology. You have the NTTA. You have different approaches that you can use depending on the area that you are, the availability of resources. The second one is engaging in policy dialogue, putting all the different stakeholders together so that they can talk to each other and identify roadmaps on the care economy. We've done that in Liberia, Nigeria this year, Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal as well last year and this year. So what we are doing is supporting policymakers to have a strategy on the care economy. It could be included into social protection, like in the case of Cote d'Ivoire, or related to the other areas. So stakeholders come together and identify what are the key needs and try to put together a roadmap towards having reforms in the country, and also identifying investment opportunities to finance the care economy. I think that's what the tool that Amber presented was really important, because with the tool, you can do the costing for your own country. You also have now the ILO Care Accelerator, where you can put the information for your country, and then you have an estimate on how much it will cost to have policies in place on childcare, policies in place on social protection, but also what will be the return on investment for your country. So you have a lot of tools and guidelines out there that are really helping to advance the work around the care economy. The second thing that we do is we do a lot of capacity building. So we have training modules that we roll out for policymakers, civil society, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Genders throughout the year in different countries. If you're interested, you can get in touch with us. We also convene with the other regional actors and global actors to advance the agenda of care. So there are a lot of momentum around the care economy. And on the second, there was a second question about how to integrate the issue of care and social protection in national laws or national policy. From the experience of the work in our region, policymakers continue to see the issue of care, the issue of social protection as just a social issue. We need to move beyond that to show them the link, the impact that it has on economic development, on economic output. If you go to talk to the Ministry of Finance, you need to be able to make the linkages between the return of investment on investing in the care economy, or instead of, for example, investing in some other infrastructure as well. So that's the narrative that UN Women is building, supporting policymakers, advocates, civil society to have the numbers for your advocacy. There was a question from Amina from Madagascar on the data. I think there was more IDEP that presented that, but there are a lot of websites where you can search for information on the care economy data available for your country to see that. There was also a question about the advocacy informality. And there was a question from Jose about the work in Senegal. So UN Women, we have a country office in Senegal, and they do a lot of activities. So perhaps we can put you in touch with the colleagues there if you want to know more specifically on Senegal. But on the issue of care economy, we've been supporting through the 3R project since 2021. The municipality in the Saint Louis region in Ziguinchor. And the bottom-up approach, we've shared the links, you can read that, is composite with 3 elements. So on each element, we have specific activities that we've been supporting women in the rural area. It will be too long to explain that, but we can discuss on it. But it's a really interesting project because you have not only programming, supporting women with access to infrastructure, time-saving technology, but also policy, working with community leaders, working with the ministry, the former Ministry of Gender, Ministry of Social Protection on identifying reforms, working with key stakeholders in the ecosystem for advocacy as well, and then putting it back at the regional level to influence regional policy within the ECOWAS or the YMU Commission as well. So yes, I think that will be all for me. Okay. Over to you, Zeynep.
Okay, thank you, Muriel. On va donner la parole à Dr. Kwasi. Après, je vais sur Dr. Kwasi. Vous m'entendez?
Vous m'entendez?
Oui, là c'est bon, oui. Allez-y.
OK, OK. D'abord, je pense que je vais saluer le docteur Diarra du CIRES, le directeur du CIRES. Oui, l'année passée, nous avons organisé un atelier sur l'autonomisation économique des femmes où nous avons beaucoup parlé du travail de soins non rémunérés. Mais on attend les conclusions de votre étude sur les foyers améliorés pour voir comment est-ce que ça peut impacter le volume du travail de soins non rémunérés. Concernant le travail de soins, quelqu'un a parlé de renforcement des capacités. Je pense que c'est très, très, très important et c'est ce que nous constatons sur le terrain. Beaucoup de décideurs de politique économique ne comprennent pas ce qu'on appelle le travail de soins non rémunéré. Vraiment, je vais donner un exemple. Quand on faisait notre atelier sur le travail de soins non rémunéré ici, on avait envoyé une invitation au Parlement et quand ils ont vu le travail de soins non rémunérés, ils ont passé directement aux soins de santé. Et donc, ils ont désigné un médecin pour participer à notre atelier. Donc, vous voyez que les gens ne comprennent pas. Si les décideurs de politique économique ne comprennent pas, ce sera difficile pour eux d'intégrer ça dans les politiques publiques. Et donc, il y a un énorme travail à faire. ONU Femmes et tous les partis concernés, IDEP et tout le monde, sur le renforcement des capacités des décideurs de politique économique. Et c'est ce qu'on est en train de faire en Côte d'Ivoire. Comme je vous l'ai dit tantôt, on va faire avec les parlementaires, on va faire avec les maires, conseils généraux et tout ça. Il faut expliquer pour qu'ils puissent comprendre. Il faut faire le lien entre le travail de soins non rémunérés et l'économie conventionnelle, l'économie formelle et établir les gains, montrer seulement que ce n'est pas juste des dépenses improductives, mais ce sont des investissements qui permettent de générer de l'emploi et aussi des recettes fiscales. Et donc, c'est ce qu'il faut faire. Les enquêtes emploi du temps, je pense que ça manque dans beaucoup de pays africains. Je pense que la première cause, non seulement les gens ne comprennent pas, mais aussi c'est le coût. Je pense que le coût est très, très élevé. Et donc, s'il y a des partenaires au développement qui pourraient aider, ces pays-là pourraient avoir des enquêtes emploi du temps. Et ça. Maintenant, concernant le plan que j'avais parlé, la feuille de route qu'on avait parlé, la question c'était qu'on a parlé des femmes. Non, la feuille de route, ce n'est pas seulement sur les femmes, parce que comme il n'y avait pas assez de temps, on n'a pas pu détailler. Sinon, les axes qu'on a dégagés, dans chaque axe, on a des actions à mener, des activités. Donc, ça comprend les femmes, les hommes, les enfants, les personnes âgées et tout le monde, l'État et le secteur privé aussi, puisqu'il faut redistribuer entre les ménages, entre l'État et le secteur privé. Et donc, tout ça a pris en compte et aussi les mécanismes de financement ou les mesures pour accroître l'espace fiscal. Parce qu'un des problèmes majeurs aussi, c'est le financement de la protection sociale. Si on veut prendre en compte le travail de soins et tout, il faut pouvoir financer et l'espace fiscal dans les pays africains actuellement est très, très réduit. Et donc, il faut trouver des mécanismes de financement. Je pense que je vais m'arrêter ici, mais je n'ai pas bien compris la question de M. José. Je ne sais pas s'il peut reposer ça, mais je n'ai pas bien saisi ça. Merci.
D'accord. José, vous êtes là? José?
Oui, je suis là, je suis là.
Oui, vous pouvez reposer la question.
Je disais au docteur Yeboah que pendant les travaux de terrain, certainement qu'ils ont rencontré des difficultés, et notamment dans les milieux ruraux. Je voudrais avoir euh, un petit sommaire de ces difficultés rencontrées et pour pouvoir faire quand même une comparaison avec les autres pays. Et l'autre chose, est-ce que, entre-temps, pendant leurs interventions sur le terrain, la population a quand même fait des propositions pour pouvoir faire changer des choses? Parce qu'on sait que lorsque vous faites des interventions dans les communautés, à un moment donné, l'idée que vous avez en tête et vous allez dans les communautés, vous vous rendez compte que ça ne rime pas avec les réalités. Alors, la population vous fait souvent des propositions pour pouvoir réajuster. Je voudrais savoir si ils ont vécu une telle situation également chez eux. Merci.
OK. OK, merci beaucoup. Je pense que le principal défi, ce sont les normes sociales. Quand vous partez dans la zone rurale, surtout dans la zone rurale, dans les grandes villes, au moins, le travail de soins non rémunérés des femmes est un peu réduit par rapport à la zone rurale, surtout quand il n'y a pas d'accès à l'électricité, à l'eau et d'autres, les femmes doivent parcourir des kilomètres pour aller chercher du bois et de l'eau. En fait, c'est les normes sociales. Et dans certaines zones, il est inconcevable d'aller dire à un monsieur d'aider sa femme dans la cuisine ou bien de faire la lessive, ou bien Donc, c'est ça, surtout dans certaines zones, il est vraiment inconcevable. Je pense que quand on faisait un atelier à Yamoussoukro, il y avait un imam qui était présent, et donc on discutait des soins, mais il était catégoriquement opposé. Voilà, il était opposé à ces mesures qu'on dit que l'homme doit aider sa femme. Quand on parlait de la redistribution du travail des soins non rémunérés où les hommes doivent prendre leur part et qu'il ne faut pas laisser tout à la charge de la femme. Mais il s'est opposé parce que peut-être c'est contre, je ne sais pas si je peux dire ainsi, peut-être c'est contre la religion et contre, ou bien contre les lois religieuses ou bien des choses. Mais l'imam, il était contre. Donc, ce sont c'est les normes sociales et que nous, des défis liés aux normes sociales que nous rencontrons sur le terrain. Est-ce que je peux dire ainsi? Voilà.
D'accord, merci, Dr. Yuba. Donc, je pense que je vais répondre. I'm going to answer to Lungile, who raised a few issues about multi-hazard recovery preparedness. So what we can do for your countries and about gender-responsive budgeting. We at IDEP, apart from the trainings that we're giving to all African countries, we do what we call tailor-made trainings. That means that after you took the gender program, gender responsive policy management, and you saw that at the level of your ministry, there are many statisticians in need of understanding gender responsive budgeting. You can request for IDEP to come to your country and train you. But in the first place, you can try to train from what you've learned, at least to explain to them what is gender responsive budgeting. We did it for Rwanda when they were doing their national development plan back in 2019. They wanted to take into account gender responsive budgeting. So we went there and had a training for civil servants from different ministries, and they were able to integrate it in their programs. So about the multi-hazard recovery preparedness, at IDEP we have a course on risk management, where you have the different steps of how to manage risk, about understanding the risk, how to identify risk assessment and analysis, how to implement an efficient risk management plan, and how to support preparedness and build resilience. So in that training, the risk is for multi-hazard. It's the economic, geopolitical, social. So all the aspects of the multi-hazard that you're talking about is taken into account. And also in 2022, we went to the Gambia. They were drafting the new National Development Plan 2023-2027, and they wanted to integrate risk management into the plan. So we went to the Gambia. We had a tailor-made training tailored to their own needs, and it's taken into account. So if these are some information that I can share that IDEP does. I hope it answers your question. So if you need further clarification, you can send me an email, because it's time now. Thank you. Muriel, c'est quoi le prochain point?
Alors, le prochain point, c'était de donner quelques tips sur comment faire des actions concrètes en faveur de l'économie des soins. Mais je crois qu'on est au-delà de 14 heures. Donc, je te laisse apprécier. De toute façon, on a partagé les présentations. Donc, les participants peuvent lire ces points-là.
D'accord. On va partager. Et s'ils ont plus de questions, ils peuvent toujours poser. On va essayer de les répondre.
Oui. Bon, Diara, va au slide suivant, juste pour qu'ils puissent voir, peut-être. Oui, suivant encore. Oui, donc c'était juste pour montrer, suivant si vous faites partie d'une organisation gouvernementale, si vous faites partie de la société civile, de la recherche, ou vous êtes un partenaire au développement, quelles sont des actions que vous pouvez mener déjà en faveur de l'économie des soins, que ce soit en matière de plaidoyer, de politique. Juste pour montrer peut-être pour les gouvernements, il a été recommandé de pouvoir allouer entre 3 à 10% du budget du revenu annuel vers des investissements dans la protection sociale et le service des soins. Beaucoup plus à moyen terme ou à long terme suivant le degré de développement des pays. À moyen terme, vous pouvez déjà essayer de mettre en place un dialogue multi-acteurs comme ce que l'on a accompagné en Côte d'Ivoire, au Sénégal, au Mali et au Nigeria pour pouvoir identifier quelles sont les priorités des différents acteurs, les priorités nationales, de voir quelles sont les politiques qui existent déjà pour vous en matière d'économie des soins. Est-ce que vous avez besoin d'une réforme spécifique en économie des soins, comme c'est le cas au Kenya? Ou est-ce que vous pouvez intégrer cette thématique-là dans
Les gars sont venus fermer. Alors qu'il fallait moins de...
Il y a quelqu'un qui est en train de parler. Dans votre politique de protection sociale, dans votre politique genre, dans votre politique nationale de développement. Donc, vous allez voir, c'est juste quelques pistes d'idées pour vous permettre de pouvoir réfléchir sur la thématique. Et bon, avec IDEP, on espère vous voir très bientôt pour d'autres ateliers, d'autres masterclass là-dessus. Merci. À toi.
D'accord, d'accord. Merci beaucoup, Muriel. Mathieu, tu as quelques mots avant qu'on ne ferme, qu'on finisse?
Non,
Mathieu?
pas trop. Je ne veux pas prendre trop de temps. Mais je remercie tout le monde. Je remercie particulièrement les collègues de UN Women pour l'engagement avec l'IDEP, comme toujours, comme chaque année. Et merci aux participants également. C'était une session très intéressante. Merci à vous.
D'accord, merci. Donc, merci Mathieu. Donc, merci à UN Women, comme l'a dit truc là. Mathieu, vous êtes toujours engagé aux côtés de l'IDEP. Voilà, toujours, toujours. Vous n'hésitez jamais à nous solliciter pour des collaborations. Donc, nous aussi, on est très reconnaissants donc, de votre collaboration. Et c'est quelque chose qui va continuer. Et je suis sûre qu'avec les perspectives que vous avez apportées aujourd'hui aux participants, qui est différent du cours, ça ne peut être que enrichissant pour eux et qui va encore aider davantage dans leur développement, j'espère, professionnel. Voilà. Muriel, quelques mots avant de terminer?
Oui, donc juste remercier l'IDEP, spécialement Zinabou Mbatio pour la très bonne collaboration. Et on espère pouvoir, au courant de cette année, avoir des ateliers, des échanges comme ça, ou même avoir un cours spécifique sur la thématique, vu qu'on voit l'intérêt, les questions que l'on a reçues. Donc, merci beaucoup pour cette collaboration. Merci aux participants, aux participantes pour les 2 heures. On sait que c'est long, mais ça a été vraiment un plaisir de vous avoir avec nous. Et n'hésitez pas, on a partagé beaucoup de liens, beaucoup d'informations. Prenez le temps de lire. Et si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez toujours faire signe à IDEP ou à ONU Femmes pour plus de clarification. Donc, merci beaucoup.
Okay, merci. Merci aussi aux participants. Thank you very much to the participants. We used to have our webinar from 10 to 12, so we are 2 hours ahead. So that's the reason why most of you couldn't join, but we are happy for those who joined us today. Thank you so much for your participation. And let's keep going. By tomorrow, I will share the concept note for the committee of practice. And next week, we're starting the course on youth employability. So thank you so much for your commitment to IDEP trainings, and we are grateful for that. Donc, merci aussi aux participants francophones. On avait l'habitude d'avoir nos webinaires 2 heures plus tôt, donc on l'a eu un peu à l'heure du déjeuner pour que tous les collègues, partout qu'ils soient avec leur fuseau horaire, que tout le monde soit accommodé. Donc, on vous remercie pour votre participation Et on va partager l'enregistrement à ceux qui n'ont pas pu prendre part. Nous vous remercions de votre engagement donc, aux côtés de l'IDEP et de ces formations. Et on vous dit à très bientôt. Merci. Merci à Charles et aux interprètes. Je pense que c'est bon maintenant. Merci.
Merci, merci. Thank you.
Merci à tous.
Merci.